And as we'll learn in a few minutes, that's a very important legal distinction to draw. But more broadly speaking, the mere presence of these drones could nonetheless be interpreted as a threat to American national security. Not only could these drones be collecting valuable intelligence that could be transmitted to adversary forces, but they could also be identifying potential vulnerabilities, helping to establish tactics, and maturing operational concepts toward large-scale drone attacks to be mounted against American defenses and critical infrastructure if a large-scale fight ever were to break out. Which all further presses the importance of the question, why aren't we shooting these drones down? And as is often the case when it comes to conversations about why the US military isn't doing something that we know they're capable of doing, the answer is that US law prioritizes the defense of critical American freedoms over the protection of critical defense assets. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. You see, despite the hyperbolic headlines about America's defenses failing to stop these drone incursions, what really stopped the US military from firing up its air defenses and playing duck hunt with these slow-moving targets is a long-standing federal statute passed all the way back in 1878, known to most of us as the Posse Comitatus Act. And while you might not be familiar with that name, you're almost certainly familiar with the law. This is the law that bars the use of the US military to enforce civil laws inside the United States unless expressly authorized by Congress, a law that's seen as vital to preserving civil liberties and separating military and civilian authority within the American government. In other words, this is the law that bars the use of the American military against the American people. Military installations like Langley Air Force Base here in the US are authorized to defend themselves only when someone or something, like inbound drones, pose an imminent threat. So, had these drones been armed with explosives, for instance, well, then the Air Force would have been well within its legal right to open up on them like the 4th of July. But because all these drones were doing was flying by overhead, they did not meet the criteria, legally speaking, for a self-defense engagement, even if they were likely to be collecting sensitive intelligence data. Now, this is a facet of the legal implications of drone defense that's almost certain to see a great deal of discussion in the years ahead because of events like this.